Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Lifting our veterans through music is something that Brian Tarquin and his heavy friends will do until there are no more wars. Brian's friends include superhero musicians that love working with him on several albums he's released, from hard rock to jazz, over the past 20 years. Beyond the Warrior's Eyes was released January 19th on Downtown Music, honoring military soldiers who defend our freedoms. Tarquin says, I wanted a true star-studded musician tribute of soaring instrumental songs. So I was very fortunate to get such iconic players as Jean Luc Ponty, Eric Johnson, Robben Ford, and Steve Morse to help me express our gratitude. Behind the Warrior's Eyes mission is to support the charity Hope for the Warriors, who provide medical care, mental health, counseling, professional training and education, physical conditioning, and transition services for wounded, ill, and injured Marines and Navy members. Brian's weekly NPR radio show called Guitar Tracks on WFIT 89.5 FM on the Florida Space Coast is streamed on www.wfit.org. He hosts in-depth interviews with world-renowned guitarists every Monday night from 10 p.m. to midnight. Please welcome three-time Emmy Award winner, American Jazz Fusion guitarist, multi-instrumentalist, recording artist, sound engineer, recording producer, and composer, Brian Tarquin, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. What I understand, are you in Florida?
Yes.
What part?
I'm on the Space Coast. I'm in Cocoa Beach.
Oh, Cocoa Beach. I'm in Bradenton on the West Coast.
That's across the state, right?
Yeah. And I used to live in Fort Lauderdale, as a matter of fact. I was that's where I went to school for radio broadcasting back in 1979.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a cool place. Let's chat about the new album. I loved it, man. It was incredible. The album benefits the veterans charity Hope for the Warriors. My dad was a Marine in World War II, like your dad. He also fought in Japan. My brother was in Vietnam. I was the only one who didn't have to go. I wanted to join the Navy, but got talked out of it by Navy SEALs. But it's a great cause. What was the trigger that got you involved with helping our veterans?
Well, when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, and because I grew up in New York City, I saw a lot of Vietnam veterans, and it just seemed like at the time there wasn't a lot of concern about them, and I thought that kind of triggered something, seeing those begging for money on the subway and homelessness. It was pretty bad. And of course, all the addictions that went with it. And of course, nobody talked about PTSD at that time. So I kind of wanted to give back musically to them. So I found Hope for the Warriors. I thought they were a good, organization, and they kind of honed in on Navy and Marine veterans. So I thought, well, this is probably a cool thing. Also, in the 80s, I did a short stint in the ROTC. So, made me appreciate veterans and their needs.
God bless you, man, for doing that. Also musically, I talked to Dave Mason. He does a lot for the military as well. The biggest thrill guys like Dave Mason got is when they talked about Vietnam and they were actually in a foxhole, getting shot at, and they were listening to his music. That's the kind of things that got them through a war,
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Yeah, I noticed you spent time in, I guess, basic training was at Fort Knox, right?
Right. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was like everything you hear about. It was rough, hot, humid. It was the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, My wife's from Kentucky, so I know all about that area.
That's
Um,
hot.
yeah. The new album. Here's what I said. Here's my statement on the new album. Beyond the Warrior Eyes is a jazz rock fusion magnum opus, a celebrated patriotic melodic salute to our brave troops who grant us freedom every day, performed by an all-star cast of proficient musicians known as Brian Tarquin and Heavy Friends. It's Jeff Beck, Mahavishnu Cool Jazz, and Tarquin Orchestration Magic. I gave it 5 stars, man. It's an incredible album. I really like it. It's awesome. What's your next venture after this one? Do you have that plan?
Not yet. I'm kind of fooling around. I think I'm going to do a track with Gus G, from Ozzy, and then I also Percy Jones from Brand X, the bass player.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of in the infant stages right now, so I'm not 100% sure which direction exactly I'm going to go. But just working it out.
I'm going to talk about some of the tracks on the album. And I've had many of the guys on the album on my show, like Jean Luc Ponty. He's a great guy. First track right off the gate, Beyond the Warrior's Eyes with Jean Luc. Very Jeff Beck sounding, which is incredible because I'm a huge fan of Jeff Beck.
Yeah, I was going for that blow by blow days and the retro fusion days that he was doing with Max Middleton and Jan Hammer and all those.
It's incredible, man. And I love Jeff. I really miss him.
Yeah, he was great.
The Gates of Valhalla, of course, and Eric's been on the show. Dean Brown, unfortunately, he passed away back in January, 26th, the day before my birthday, at
This year?
68 years old. Yeah.
I know that. That's.
But you actually had a couple of guys on your album that have passed away since.
Yeah, I have a couple other albums. Like I worked with Larry Coryell.
Right.
I was good friends with Chuck Loeb. I had toured with him, and yeah, it's sad to see everybody going.
Yeah, it is. It's a big blow. It really is. Next track on the album, Quiet Desperation, with another guy, Robben Ford. Robben was a member of the LA Express, the Yellow Jackets. He worked with Miles Davis, Joni Mitchell, George Harrison, Larry Carlton. I mean, he's been around, hasn't he?
Yeah, Robben Ford is great. Also on that track is Hal Lindis, a buddy of mine from back in the grades.
Oh, really? Just a great track. Behind the Iron Curtain. I love the titles of these songs too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I try. When I composed these tracks, I had each of the guests in mind.
Oh, okay.
Style.
Mm-hmm.
So custom wrote each track for the guest, and so and I've worked with Chris Poland from Megadeth for many times, and he's a great guy, great player. So that one in particular, I do right away.
Yeah, the titles of the track really fit the music perfectly. I love it. And again, Behind the Iron Curtain's another Jeff Beck type influence song that I noticed. It's great. And again, Faith and Hope. You got one of my favorite guitarists, Steve Morse, and yeah, John Tropez.
Yeah, John goes back to the 70s. He worked with Billy Cobham and so many guys. He kind of like was a studio guy, and he also had some great records back in those days.
Yeah, Steve recently played here in Clearwater with Kansas. He came and surprised everybody, which was really cool.
Wanted to catch the Kansas show. I missed it. It was here, but that's great that he actually surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a
He was,
great guitar player. Yeah, I think Tropez also played with Clapton, I think, for a while, and Dr. John, uh, Paul Simon, Harry Chapin.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
A Soldier's Journey, Steve Kindler. That song, that tune is probably one of my favorites. That's an epic track.
here, I really like that track, and I had gotten the Budapest Orchestra for that, and I was really lucky to get Steve Kindler from. He was a cat that I was turned on to in the '70s from that album Jeff Beck Live with the Jan Hammer group, and
Hmm.
that was amazing. And there's the violinist that swaps solos between Jeff Beck and Jan Hammer, and that's Steve Kindler. And of course, Steve Kindler was in Mahavishnu Orchestra and replaced Jean Luc on
Right.
John.
That's the, when I think of that song, it's epic. And to me, it sounds like a soundtrack to a movie,
Yeah, yeah, it was
right?
really fine, and the title too of this journey for these guys.
Yeah, just fantastic. My favorite tune, definitely my favorite song. Um, Here's another one, La Sierra del Norte, which means the Northern Mountains. Um, Another great song. It kind of had that cool jazz track influence. The guitar player from Supertramp is on that.
Yeah,
Carl.
leaning a little bit to Santana kind of vibe. So I like that. That was a great track.
I love your music. First of all, you're eclectic. You can play anything if you want to, but I love where you've headed. I love the fusion tracks. I love the soft jazz music, which is incredible. So yeah,
Yeah, fusion stuff was kind of like where my heart was at. Where you're combining all of it, where you're getting funk, jazz, rock, even world music. That's kind of like a great hodgepodge of all of that.
your dad was a DJ, right?
Was in the '40s, '50s during the war. Yeah.
That's awesome. I was a DJ back in the late '70s. I did top 40 music.
Top 40 music, that was a lot different than what you have top 40 today. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the top 40 today is not top 40. It's just I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
When I was on the air, I was playing, the Cars and Zeppelin was, it was disco, it was new wave, it was, a little bit of everything, which was great. It was a nice mixture.
But yeah, it was a lot of rock and roll in top 40
Hmm.
back, like zero now.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it?
But,
Yeah, things have changed big time. I think the corporate world kind of took over radio when I think that bill was passed. I think Clinton passed that bill that these conglomerates could take over radio stations,
um, who opened that bill up was Reagan.
Yeah, it started there and then I think it was passed later on.
Clear Channel and all these places would buy up because you could in the old days you could actually go and buy a radio station for
Yeah.
$30,000. Today, even in the tiniest marketplace in Timbuktu, it's millions of dollars just because they had conglomerated everything and then pre-programmed everything to sound the same.
Hmm.
And where you were, unless you heard like the weather report, because they all play exactly the same program.
They got this stupid idea that people want to hear the same classic rock over and over again. Oh, if we dig deep, they're not going to listen to us anymore. It's ridiculous.
Oh, it is ridiculous. But actually, it has the opposite effect because people get tired of it
Right.
because same thing over and over again. So their listenership has gone down, and you could see the proof in the pudding because radio listenership, even in top 40 across the board, is just so low
It is.
that because most of the generation now, the new generation, and they're on Spotify.
Yep.
That so they don't even pay attention to radio.
Yeah. And blog radio's gotten big too.
Yeah, yeah. And so now in Pandora, people live in Pandora, all these other outlets. So today, it's kind of like, an afterthought radio station.
You know what's sad is radio was supposed to be for the community.
Yeah, right. Know that. NPR is the only one that tries to keep that philosophy going.
Yeah. Yeah, they got I don't know. There's a station on NPR that plays really like kind of underground music, which I love, and yeah, that reminds me of the old days with those underground rock stations.
That's what it used to be. It was like, real cacophony of great music with, no particular format. It was the 80s where by mid 80s, they were formatting everything so badly that the margins became smaller and smaller and smaller, that nothing would fit in. And then, like, if today, even if Led Zeppelin got resurrected and actually had a new song out, classic rock wouldn't play it because it wouldn't. But anyway, it's pretty sad what they did. They made it into a recurrent station.
It is sad. There was a classic rock station. I think it was Naples or Fort Myers, and I had interviewed Ronnie Montrose, and I was trying to, because he was on a tour. It was his last tour. His life ended after the tour. But I contacted the station. I said, "Would you like to interview Ronnie?" And he says, "Well, I don't think we can because it doesn't fit our format." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, we don't play Ronnie Montrose music." I said, "Do you play Edgar Winter?" He says, "Yes." He said, "There you go." So they didn't want to interview the guy. It's just...
it was all suits and attorneys that ran, and guys with pie charts.
Yep.
That ran the stations. That's why where my show is, my weekly show, it's an NPR station, and they're really, very open to all styles of music, and especially they support the community music. So
that's awesome, man. You got a great list of musicians that are on your show. I saw it. It's great.
Do an interview and have you participate.
It's fun, isn't it? Brian, you keep cutting out. I don't know why.
Oh, I do. Okay.
When I talk and then you start talking, it cuts out for some reason.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know why. We go back now to track 8, Common Valor, which has a guy I love, Larry McRae. I first met Larry here in Sarasota. He was backing up John Mayall, and it was John Mayall's 80th birthday here. And I got to spend time with Larry and John Mayall, which is really, really cool. Then I had Larry on the show. He's a great guitar player, usually known as a blues guitar player, but he did excellent on that track.
Yeah, I was turned on to him years and years and years ago, and he was just such a great player. I just thought, oh man, I've got to use him. He's just really, really good. I got to get the right track, and this seemed to be the right one for him. And he's got a great feel, and he's got great playing chops, and of course, with being with John Mayall was awesome. He's probably one of my favorites from that era, especially of course the Beano record with Eric Clapton. So, but John Mayall's always a great guitarist. Mick Taylor went through him, Peter Green, Eric Clapton. There was so many.
Yeah, John's a pretty good keyboard player too, and a singer. He's a good singer.
He is.
Yeah. It was his 80th birthday. I was expecting somebody, like a big surprise, like a Clapton or somebody to show up. It didn't happen.
No.
Yeah, it was pretty great evening though. The promoter of the concert, I asked him, I said, could I have a copy of the set list? Because I was, covering the show. He grabs me and throws me in John's dressing room. I mean, he basically threw me in his dressing room, and I said, what's going on here? And it was just me and John, and I got all the music he was going to play for that night. And I saw his really famous guitar, the turquoise,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But what a nice guy. He actually set up his own equipment And then he autographed CDs before and after the show. And, you know, he was a very humble guy.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
he's about
Go ahead.
over 90 now. He's retired.
Yeah, definitely from touring. I don't know about, you know, cutting new music. I had no idea. But he's made a lot of albums.
Oh man, has he?
Yeah. He's
Uh,
definitely a legend. Track 9. Wow. This hits home. These colors don't run. This is an incredible song, man. This is like an anthem, an American anthem. It's got Steve Morse. Phil Nero sings on it, correct? Wow. Talk about this.
uh, it's funny. I had Steve, and Steve did a great job. It originally was a instrumental track, but I gave it to Phil. There was a, I was turned on by Phil from Bumblefoot, from Guns N'
Mm-hmm.
Roses. Phil and I did a number of records together, and this was like one of the last tracks we did together. And I had it never released because I was waiting for the right project to release it on. And then I said, you know what, this would be a great closing track for this album. And I think Phil did a great job on that. And he sounds great. And lyrically, it like you said, it really hits home, and it hits the nail on the head of I think what everything was about on the record. Yeah.
Have you gotten feedback from the veterans?
Um, not a lot of veterans. I think anybody who's heard it from the veterans has really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Record, because it is a fusion record, and there's not a lot of vocals. In fact, that's the only vocal on the album. It's uh, a certain listener to really understand the record. It's not like the whole lyrics that they can all latch on to.
Right. Your dad, was he a Marine?
Yes.
You remember what division he was in?
I forget. He was a staff sergeant, and he was in communications during the war.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, my dad was in the 2nd Marine Division. He was in Okinawa, Saipan. And he was he's a quartermaster.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I wonder if they who knows?
Too much, they never did. So but that's pretty much I think in his division there was Tyrone Powers from he was there, and there was a couple others, but it was quite an experience, I think, for him.
Yeah, a lot of soldiers don't want to talk about, what they witnessed back then.
Yeah, their mindset back then was they did it, they left it behind, they came, and this is another life, and
exactly.
Nobody really got anything.
Yeah, my father-in-law was he was in the infantry in Germany, and he was a guy walking next to the tanks. And he lost a lot of his hearing from the tank noise.
Yeah.
But he was also a point man, So, but he actually shared some stories with me, and he showed me pictures of dead German bodies stacked up. Things like
really?
that. Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow.
War was horrible.
That one.
Yeah. But thank God for them, because these guys are the ones that saved America.
Paved our way that we can do what we're doing right now. So
exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Exactly right. Most people, when they think about you getting an award, they would think, he's got a Grammy award, or because of music. But you won 3 Emmy Awards. And when you think of Emmy Awards, you always think, a great TV show or something like that. How did you you were involved with a daytime was it soap opera?
Yeah, all my children, and this is back in the '90s. What basically I had a number of radio hits at the time with
Mhm.
Blue Jazz Circuit and Contemporary Jazz NAC, and they were using the music for various scenes, and then they just basically brought me into the fold to hire me to get me to just compose this type of music for them. Because these shows and these production companies usually brought me in to bring their music to a higher level because I was coming from records and the existing composers there were just kind of just a different level of composing,
Mhm.
just background television composing, and because I'm coming from records and they wanted quality, so that's kind of how I got all involved with that.
Did you appear for the Emmy Award ceremony?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I,
Who were the big winners that year? Remember?
I think all my children kind of sweeped, and I think Susan Lucci had won,
Mm.
and it was cool. We went actually to the Gracie Mansion, and met Bloomberg and all of that. So it was a big hoodoo, and it was one of them. Yeah, and the other one I couldn't because my daughter was born at the same time. But it was great. It was a great honor, and it was a real cool experience.
Yeah, I like your trophy case behind you there. That's pretty cool. A lot of people don't know this, but you were actually moving on up to the east side before the Jeffersons, or at the time of the Jeffersons, or before the Jeffersons.
Yeah, actually, I funny they used my building as the backdrop to that opening in the on the Jeffersons. It's hilarious every time I see it. I used to get picked up on the bus with the kids back in the early '70s. Jefferson, what apartment he lived in and everything. I had to explain it was all done in Hollywood, but it's
That's
funny.
funny. You were living there at the time?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Would have been cool if we saw your face peeking through the curtains or something, you know?
That
That's pretty
time,
neat.
that building was one of the first high rises on the Upper East Side. So
Hmm.
I think that's why they picked it for the backdrop.
That was 1764 North Sycamore between Franklin and Hollywood Boulevard, right? Is that right?
No, that one, that's the Jim Morrison apartment in
Oh, that's
Hollywood.
right. That's a Jim Morrison. Yeah, you're right. And you lived there too. You lived in
Yeah,
Jim Morrison's apartment.
right in his apartment. Yeah, it was in the back, and it was kind of like he had it in those days to get away from his Hollywood Hills home because there were so many groupies up there,
Uh-huh.
or just to write poetry and lyrics and things. He just kind of be by himself.
Hmm. So that was actually his apartment you were living in.
Yeah.
Huh.
That building was a famous building. There was also Mick Jagger, Keith Richards lived in where the manager lived, that apartment. And then I lived in another apartment in the building on the second floor in the front where Paul Revere and the Raiders rented the whole floor.
Hmm.
It was really a Hollywood kind of icon place at the time.
That's very cool. If I was in Morrison's apartment, I'd be looking for stash. You
That was
know,
his
that's
stash.
pretty cool. You did a
Yeah,
lot of musical scores. I saw the list of scores you've done. You worked, with The Watcher, Keanu Reeves, Desert Heat, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Descender. You did a National Lampoons. You did a Beverly Hills 90210, Grey's Anatomy, Seinfeld. What'd you do with Seinfeld?
Seinfeld. I did the bumpers, the music bumpers, and like the promos and things.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Huh.
so it was a cool thing. You know, at the time I got involved with doing all of the television and film music, nobody really wanted to do it too much because at that time everybody wanted to be a rock star, still was looking for, you know, the record industry was still a very healthy industry. It was before it took a dive, you know, tower closing and all of that. So it was an open field. You know, I could go into places with a DAT or CD, or they would play it right off of that. It was pretty relaxed in those days.
I've got a little bit of trivia from Seinfeld. I interviewed two rock stars that actually were actors in Seinfeld. Let's see if you know. Do you know? Two rock stars. No?
I have no idea. I didn't really watch the show all that much in those days.
Well, Michael DeBar is one of them. He played a waiter. And the other one is Joe Lala, who actually played a priest.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I had them both on the show. A lot of people don't know that. I thought I'd bring it up. You're also known for the Guitar Master series, which was very cool. I mean, you've had guys like Jeff Beck and Steve Vai and Jimmy Page on your show. Talk about Jungle Room Studios. That's still happening, right? Do you do all your recordings at Jungle Room?
Yeah, I have that. That's always been my studio. That's it's a very unique studio because it's in like a 28-foot trailer.
Really?
That was, yeah, a mobile studio with 10-foot ceilings inside. So and it was made in Southern California, especially for recording. And it's got rooms. It's got a control room and a live room where I keep all the amps and the tape machines and everything. You know, I analog. I have, but of course with digital, I have a really a cool Trident 24 from the 80s mixing console that I completely redone and brought back to life and recapped. I have an Atari MTR 90 tape machine, 2-inch tape machine, and Ampex 1/4-inch machine, a lot of outboard gear. And so I like, you know, I like analog, but I also like the fact that I can switch between digital and analog. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And, you know, it was, you know, this album, and I did one last year that came out called called The Brothers in Arms. That had Joe Satriani and Vinnie Moore and who I worked with. You know, those were both done at the same time over the pandemic. So a little before the pandemic, 2019, and then it went through most of the pandemic. And so everybody kind of was on lockdown. So a lot of tracks were done virtually. So I was able to get so many great players to do tracks. So, because everybody kind of was at home.
Well, you did all the engineering and producing on this album as well, right? Yeah.
You know, I mixed it down to 1/4-inch like we did in the old days, and they mastered it at Air Show Mastering up in Colorado right off the tapes. So did that in 22. So it was a time where you could be really creative, and I took my, you know, my sweet time to get all the sounds correct. And before you know it, I had 2 albums, and it was supposed to be one. And so what I did is I kind of like divided the hard rock one, the metal one, into the Brothers in Arms, and then I did the jazz fusion one into Beyond the Warrior side. So
we did an excellent job, man. The quality of the albums is beautiful. Yeah. Do you lease out the studio to other musicians?
No, it's private.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think the studio's in Merritt Island. Is that where it is?
The studio is in Cape Canaveral.
Oh, it's in Cape Canaveral. Cool. Yeah. Very cool. Are you close to Titusville, I guess, right?
Below Titusville.
Below Titusville.
I'm thinking about a half hour, 40 minutes south of Titusville.
So you see all the launches, right?
I see the launches all the time. Yeah, I could go up to the even in Cocoa Beach, you just see them go straight out.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I did a tour. I did a tour in NASA back in, I think it was 69 or 70, and they had the Saturn V actually in the big building. You know, they're getting it ready for the moon launch. So that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it is, but that was right at the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The tour there is incredible. They have a great tour.
Yeah, they do. You know, I've been on that tour a couple times. It's really cool. Now I think they now that was probably replaced the Saturn V. They have the space shuttle.
Right, right. I missed the Saturn V. That was a cool rocket.
Yeah, but I think they have Saturn V's in another section of the museum. They have everything: the Apollo missions, the Mercury missions, and all of that.
That's awesome. You told us a funny story about your dad. He wanted, I guess you played the clarinet, and
Clarinet, but he wanted.
you had these Zeppelin posters and the Who posters and the Stone posters, and he wanted you to play the clarinet.
Yeah, my room and said, I know a great idea. You can play the clarinet, and that way you don't have to bring your guitar and amp to the, very easy because I would have no band rehearsal. I mean, it was music like that.
Typical dad,
And it's funny, he was dead serious too, and it was just kind of like I was thinking, wow, where are you?
Well, that's his generation, old school. My dad listened to that music. I got a lot of my music too from my dad with all the stuff he listened to. Of course, he loved Sinatra and
Yeah, right.
Mario Lanza. He know that stuff. You've written a lot of books, and one of them, which I was impressed about, was your Insider's Guide to Music Licensing and a Survival Guide for Music Composers, because you actually tell it like it is, to help young musicians.
Yeah, when I first got involved with everything, there was no books, back in the day that told you that. And if there were one or two, it was written by an attorney. It was very dry, and it was really hard to follow, the language and everything. So I wanted to really tell it from a musician's, perspective and standpoint, saying like, listen, this is the way this works, and this is kind of like how it operates.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, you can't, kind of sugarcoat. Also explain too, like what exactly are you getting paid for, and what, in street terms, what should a musician be looking for? Money and royalties, if any,
Yeah.
And that's kind of why that was really my fueling to do this books, so kind of like, and give examples of my experience.
That's incredible because, so many musicians got screwed, especially in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah, and because in those days it was really a gray area about it. There was just so much, the musicians didn't know, and the record companies could hide and not say anything. And today in a digital world, it's almost impossible to hide that, because you have all the stream counts, you have all of these various companies like, the PROs and the MLC and Harry Fox, that the data's there now. You can't deny it. If you got 50 million streams, you got 50 million streams. There's no way, even though they try to skirt around explaining, oh, well, this amount is this and this is that.
Mm-hmm.
Still love hearing them try to skirt around this and say, a reason why they can't pay you or something. But it's a lot harder for that.
I still don't trust the system though, because people, they steal music. I mean, that happened in the beginning with Napster.
Yeah, Napster. That was it was I believe it was a knee-jerk reaction. I think that was huge blunders that the music industry did was go after, a 15-year-old
Mm-hmm.
loaded music from Napster, because Napster had 1 million users, and it didn't really take million plus users, and it didn't take really a genius. What happens if we actually use a subscription base, or charge a uniform amount to download this music instead of going in front of the Congress and doing, a federal case out of it. The record companies could use it, but you see, the record companies had no foresight on this.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was a short-lived, time that they were going to make any money from music like that, because the brick and mortar system was still in place. But it took years later, and the whole system fell apart. And then people, like I was saying, that a lot of the publishers, like Warner Chappell and these other people that I remember talking to, had a snobbish attitude about television music and production music and film music, who'd never thought that they would ever be a part of that, went out and started buying music library.
Mm-hmm.
2000s, because they were losing so much revenue from record sales, because the record sales weren't existing.
Mm-hmm.
It took a guy just to want to sell iPods to come up with this whole intricate network that everybody bases everything off with Apple, with iTunes, to actually charge to download. And this is something that years before that Napster had in place.
Mm-hmm.
But instead destroy Napster, instead of saying we should take them into the fold,
Mm-hmm.
whole thing out, because this is a future moneymaker.
Mm-hmm.
But it's people with not much foresight that kind of did that. I feel one of the huge blunders of the music industry moving into new territory.
What's a shame is people that are involved in the music industry. These people don't give a shit about the music.
No, they don't give a damn about the music. They don't care about the artist. They don't care. It's all a bottom line, money grid thing for them.
Yeah.
And what they, kind of did after, Metallica went after Napster
Mm-hmm.
and end users, but I think that was a mistake as well, because they could have had Napster. I mean, Metallica at the time could have just bought Napster, and they would have had, their own store,
Mm-hmm.
thing, and they could have had an empire, a monopoly, of Napster, that they could have had all the music flowing through. But everybody was so, comfortable with their present position as lord and manor over the estates, that nobody really thought that this, downloading and what would be later become streaming would become the only industry standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. I miss the old days still. Go to the record store.
Oh yeah, to have some. Yeah.
Yeah, really do.
Yeah. Too, as a consumer, not only just an artist, but I miss Tower. I miss those, because they were very good at supporting artists, regional music, and they had such a great network. Another, what I feel, gigantic music industry was that the record companies should have either together, or they could have, one of them could have just bought Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Would have their own distribution. Everything, the infrastructure was there. They had, 180, 200 stores at the time. I mean, nationwide. It didn't take a genius to think like, well, I know that they were in the hole and they were upside down, but really going bankrupt really didn't help, because they were only going to get pennies on the dollar from what Tower anyway. And I know Tower owed them millions of dollars. So, But to me, and the majors had bailed them out several times through the years, but it was really, to me, it was like, just buy them, take them over.
Yeah.
It's already there. Because I don't know how an industry that relied at that time on so much brick and mortar revenue thought that having Tower go under their 180 stores would somehow be supplemented by Newberry Comics and Rasputin
Mm-hmm.
at only a handful of stores regionally. So it made really no sense. And then I think they were relying on, because at the time when you talked to them, it was like they were saying, well, we still have Virgin and HMV, but it was like Virgin only had 4 or 5 stores,
Right.
mega stores, and then HMV only had a handful. And after Tower went out, subsequently, HMV and then Virgin bailed out of the U.S. market.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, it didn't really take, to me, a genius to figure this out.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
And they supposedly have the marketing in place and all these people that are supposedly, quote unquote, business professionals to figure this kind of thing out, who thought, yeah, I think it's a great idea. Let Tower go under. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's beyond me. But, and then they came to a blundering halt, and they had to then buy all these music production libraries, which they overpaid for them, which I don't even know if they've recouped by now, but because they were at a height, and the way they were doing the formula was 4 or 5 years out. But if you're at a peak of the market, they don't know if the market's going to go down, so you're overpaying. The whole thing was really kind of, I don't know, it was like a fire sale.
Yeah.
Desperately trying to find loss with their huge blunder with Napster and Tower, and I don't know if they really found it. And of course, things just kept going under, and then they made these deals behind backdoor deals with Apple and Spotify, where they paid premium. They were paid premium money for the streams, but yet set the standard for all of the other streamers and stream companies that would have to pay or get paid revenue from Spotify at such a low bar because they were already paid out so much. It was really something, and so that's what leaves us now. Why the revenue is so small for streaming.
Yeah.
It's a sad. It was quite a sad thing to see, but hopefully, it revives itself. I mean, I know that other parts of the world, physical is still strong. Like parts of Europe, but even parts of Europe are now going stream.
They're changing too. You're right. I interview a lot of prog artists from overseas, and I introduced them to America because they're so great. The players on these albums are, I love prog music, so I talked to Norway, Sweden, all over, and it's changing. Like you said, it's changing there too. They're not happy with it either.
Yeah, because they're slower to change.
Yeah,
but I think the slowest to change is Japan. Japan power there, and probably Virgin and HMV, but they are still about 80% physicals, 85, somewhere in that neighborhood. Maybe. But they're the slowest to change. So, but eventually they'll have to.
Yeah. I grew up in my dad's business, which was retail electronics, since he started in the late 50s. And I ended it in the 90s. So I saw the changes in electronics, from transistor radios to reel-to-reel, 8-track cassette, the Walkman, the Watchman, everything.
Yeah.
And I blame technology on the changes because they changed too quickly. We went from cassette and 8-track to CD to wiping out CD to MP3s, and that got rid of the album. There's no, people used to buy albums. They don't buy albums anymore. They buy tracks.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, strange kind of, circle that came, because you're right. We went from CDs, which sounded so much better.
Yeah.
And then you got, because that was probably the height of the audiophile.
Mm-hmm.
Then you, as far as the consumer was concerned, and then we went to MP3s. It sounded like complete crap.
That's right.
Early days. Then they got better. Then you could go to special sites to wave download, but that didn't really take off because people didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. They chose the VHS over the Beta, and the Beta was better than the VHS, but it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think, and then we went to vinyl, back to, but vinyl was then the same vinyl as we bought for $5 that people buy for 50 now.
Yeah.
Just because it's thicker and has all this BS about remaster. And people don't really, because I hear this every year, and it's such bullshit. And I've been hearing this every year for the past, I got to tell you, 15 years, 20 years. Some idiot Rolling Stone will say, this year, vinyl has outdone the sales of CD.
Bullshit.
The thing outdone CD because nobody buys CDs because you. I mean, it's so stupid. It's always the like kind of comparison I've ever thought and ever seen in my life, because it's like, dude, if you look, the way they make it sound is like everybody and their brother is pressing vinyl, selling. But the truth is, if you look at the charts and you see who is actually selling those top 25 vinyls, it's the same people that have sold it when we were kids.
Yeah.
Collectors are buying Zeppelin and Bowie,
right.
And all of the Miles Davis around midnight. They're just rebuying it to collect. It's not like the average guy is going out and buying that $45 vinyl and actually playing it at home. So it's a whole smoke and mirrors bullshit thing, and it's like, the way it is that the average band can't afford vinyl. Vinyl is so that you would be having to charge literally $35 a vinyl, and no one's going to buy $30 vinyl from an unknown band. Maybe they'll buy it on tour, but it would never make the money. It would never recoup. It would never do any of that. And I think that people of stature name have enough trouble selling physical shows. So it's not. It's just a BS.
You'll know when they're selling a lot of vinyl when stereo stores come back selling the rack systems. Right?
You would stereos popping back up.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool stereos that actually work.
Right.
But the only thing you get is those little USB.
Right.
That shows you that they'll sell it at Barnes and Noble, which is a outrageously priced place. They're $50, $55 vinyl, and they'll sell this cheap, turntable.
Look what's happened, Brian. Look at the shit that's happened as far as the sound quality to the consumer. The telephone, the shit on the telephone, people playing their recordings from concerts on YouTube, the worst crap I've ever heard in my life. It's, what happened?
It's true that the bar is really, really, really low.
It's a shame.
You would just walk over the bar. It's really kind of crappy, and you also get, with the open market, you get Spotify, people crowding the field with you don't even know them, and they could have like a million Spotify followers. You never
Hmm.
heard of a lo-fi kid from his mother's basement, and it's like under some crazy name, and you don't even know who they are. They supposedly have all these followers, and but no musician magazines or anybody's ever written up about any of them, and their little audience is just on that little
Hmm.
crazy web page, that they're on. It's a very strange kind of thing to get your head around the whole thing, and it's all about metrics,
Hmm.
about followers you're at. Like, what are you, John the Baptist? Do you have these?
Yeah,
It's a weird it's a very weird world we live in,
it
and
is.
but that's what we got, and I guess we have
Yeah.
to.
Well, CD should have never been abolished. Okay. The Walkman was a great thing. When I sold the first Walkman, the Sony Soundabout.
God, I love that. It was big too.
Yeah.
It record. It had a flip out mic.
Yeah. You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, great. I love those things. Those were
Me too.
really. And you know what? The thing was is that they tried the Walkman with a CD, but of course it skips like
It does skip.
and no matter what you did, you couldn't run with the
Yep.
jog. The Walkman was still the best thing. It's
And they lied. They said CDs don't scratch. The hell they don't. They do scratch, right?
they it's harder to scratch them. I think on their original one there was a better surface when they were
Hmm.
beta on all this, and that was scratchable. You could write with a marker on it and everything, and they'd still read it. But the cheaper ones that they went with to the consumer were the scratch. They could scratch.
Yep.
Of course, we know they skipped. I mean, even in the car, they
They
skipped
do
all over.
skip. They do. Yeah.
It was great because you could put it in the car, thing never skipped. It scratch, and then they would get wound up. And yeah, there were problems, but it still was tape and it still was analog. It still sounded warm to me.
Yeah.
You got a really good cassette. Like, remember the Takamichis?
Hmm.
Those Takamichi recorders and players that had like four heads
Hmm.
and real quality ones. They sounded really good.
Yeah.
Sounded very good. But
But
you had to.
you know what sounded even better back in the day? Reel to reel.
Oh, reel to reel. There was no roundabout way of going to a reel to reel. Reel to
Hmm.
reel. I would say that was it. Reel to reel was. That's why I still have it in the studio.
Yeah. It was just so big, that's why.
It just sounded really good. There's
Yeah.
nothing that's rock band on a reel to reel with the
Mhm.
the tape saturation, the drums, and the guitars, and the bass, and all that.
We sold a ton of Craig 212s. They were the mini mini reel to reel. That was a big seller back in the day.
I used to love those stereo stores because you used to be able to go in there, and they had beautiful layouts of these wonderful stereo components, and the speakers had this beautiful mahogany and
Hmm.
teak. Just it was wonderful. It was a work of art, to be honest.
Yeah, I had Sansui 4-channel system.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, love Sansui. That's a good brand. What did
all
you
those
have? What did you have?
really good electronics.
Yeah. What kind of system did you have back in the day?
Oh my God. Let's see. I had a many, like the Fisher one,
Hmm.
the Kenwood, an Alpine. Um, yeah, I had a whole different bunch of one. The Macintosh. Remember the tube amps?
Hmm.
Um, they were great. And everybody had them. All your friends had some one of these or another's, the big speakers and all the components, and you'd lay on the floor listening to Dark Side of the Moon. And so it was or like song remains the same as Zeppelin. There was nothing like what they call now vinyl was really just records, what we
Hmm.
call. I mean,
Right.
nobody as vinyl. They would refer, maybe in the '60s, they referred to them as acetates.
Hmm.
I just called them records.
Hmm. Or
And then,
LPs. LPs.
then
Yeah.
of course, the A-Track. I remember A-Track was the funkiest.
I liked 8-track. I didn't like cassette. 8-track, I had a million 8-tracks.
Did you? You A-Track. I always heard the bleeding over in the
Right.
from track the next track,
You're right about that. You're right about that. I forgot about that.
because I would hear like the quiet part of, like, of Thank You. I
Mhm.
remember track with Zeppelin and Zeppelin 2, and then when it got really quiet, I would hear the bleeding over of A Whole Lot of Love,
Mhm.
or the other track of Plants Screaming.
Yeah,
Going like, what the hell is that?
I remember that.
So I like it, which those 8 tracks were just like carts in
Yep.
a
Yeah, radio cards. Yeah.
cart for breaks. And then you had the cassettes I liked because they were compact, and then
Right.
to listen on a Walkman.
Oh, with the Walkman, of course. But you know what I liked about 8-track? I liked the tracks. I think pressing a button, going to 1 track, 2 track, 3 track. It was easy, you know,
Yeah, in the
especially in the
car.
car. In the
That,
car.
that was cool.
Yeah. Those were the days.
Those were really cool, elaborate car setups back then
Yes.
with you and amps. It's funny, my son was dying to do a test drive on a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
So we went on a test drive on a Tesla. And it was like driving, a fast, golf cart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at, there's no controls. There's a big iPad there, and everything's done off the iPad. And it's screwy because you can't really control that. You've got, like, today it's like you got 5,000 apps. Like, don't know
Right.
where that. Where's my gauge? How fast am I going? There's no gauges. And you know, what really amazed me was the sound sounded like complete shit.
Mm-hmm.
The system, the whole system sounded like crap. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just the overall, sound of the. And I was surprised. I was like, this guy's supposed to be some tech guy, and he's got the worst sound. It sounded like, what, when when CDs first came out and they were really brittle and they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of sounded like that.
Right.
And I sounds like,
Hmm.
yeah, for a Tesla battery operated thing that they toot their own horn so much about. It's like there was no, and they even knew it, because I went back to the dealer and I told them, they're like, well, you can buy an aftermarket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like going to buy this really expensive car, and you want me to go buy an aftermarket?
Mm.
I mean, Kia that sounded better.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
I
It's
remember
crazy.
installing my first car stereo myself. I think I had a Pioneer with Bose speakers, you know.
I remember
Sounded
the
great.
Pioneers in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were cool.
They were cool. Yeah.
It, can't you can't do it anymore. It's all God. It's just like, it's. I miss putting a CD in. It's that I had my son's one of my son's first cars a few years ago was an old Tahoe from '97.
Hmm.
It was a two-door Tahoe, so it looked like a Bronco, and it was cool. It was great. It had an 8-cylinder 350, and it had the factory CD and cassette.
Oh, wow.
So CDs and cassettes, and it was great.
I don't know. My next car might be like an old muscle car or something, you know?
A Mustang
Mm.
Turbo. Man, that thing's great. It goes fast. It's a new one, but a newer
Yeah.
one.
The new Mustang? Yeah, that's a nice car.
Yeah, they're really nice. Yeah, convertible. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's a real nice car.
no boost in it.
Mm-hmm.
convertible, and it's got the turbo. And
Wow.
man, that's fast. It's crazy, and it's a really nice car. And the sound system's good because they actually have a tweeter mid range and a woofer,
Mm-hmm.
so they have it together. No cassettes or anything, but you could put everything on a thumb drive and then read it off
Yeah.
of there.
Yeah. I know. I don't like that.
Yeah,
Give
right.
me an 8-track or a cassette or a CD, I'm always going to be old school.
Yeah, same here. I just use
Yeah.
my phone.
Yeah.
It does a phone call, but it's yeah, I use it as like a storage library of music.
True. Yeah, even I get used to YouTube all the time on my TV. I got one of the really big TVs, big screen TVs, and
Yeah,
it's I guess I'm lazy now. You go to YouTube to listen to music, just punch in.
yeah. I don't really go to YouTube too much because the sound quality is never too great,
It's
and
not. It's not. It's horrible.
and, and YouTube seems to be a passe. It used to be really big, like when it first came out, and now it's
Mhm.
kind of my kids go on there just to listen to music for free.
Right.
Like, oh man, it's like, wow, we've come down to this.
I
Nobody
know.
ever, nobody. The only guy who downloads, like, if I can't find a cow, I'll just go on iTunes and download,
Right.
supporting the artist and actually downloading the track.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What a world. What a world. We need the pioneers again. You know, we need music pioneers like we used to have. We don't have any. Maybe you take
Yeah.
over.
My monitors, I have these old, great JBL studio monitors.
JBL.
Yeah, I was
Nice.
just, used to be in the studio, but, I put them in just for my stereo, and I still have stereo components.
Nice. I'm tempted. I want to get a rack system again, but I live in
Yeah.
an apartment, so I can't turn it up too loud.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. What about touring? You gonna go on tour? You gonna
No, I haven't done touring in a long time.
really?
I Since before the pandemic. So, I think the last thing I did was a Jackson Jazz Festival,
Hmm.
Jacksonville, a few years back. But it's live music has taken such a hit, and for what I do, I'm so busy in the studio all the time that it's just there's not really much time to really to organize this. And these type of releases would be impossible to correlate with everybody.
True. Yeah. Well, Brian, here's your final question. I ask everybody this question. I get some really interesting answers. Okay. If you had a Field of Dreams wish like the movie, that's my favorite movie, to perform, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Oh yeah, that's easy. I would put in the same room in a recording studio. I'd probably I do it in the Rolling Stones mobile.
Mobile.
That's what I base my studio on.
Right.
Do it there. I would do it at Grangeley Manor,
hmm
where Jimmy Page had done all those great Zeppelin records. And I would get Jimmy Page. I would get Les Paul, Jeff Beck, Randy Rhoads, Jimi Hendrix, John Bonham, um, Jaco Pastorius,
hmm
and Nicky Hopkins,
hmm
and put a great massive fusion record together.
Wow. Kind of like the Spectrum album.
Be my That would be an A-list recording session, I think, to get all.
Did you mention Billy Cobham?
Yeah, I love Billy Cobham. Yeah, we could
Yeah.
get. I figured getting John Bonham would
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
cover all of the tracks.
Yeah. That's a good band. I'd love to hear that.
And that would be super awesome. And probably add Jan Hammer in there.
John Hammer. I've had him on the show. He's a nice guy. Yeah. How about Buddy Rich?
I don't know how he'd do it there, but it would be kind of cool. You know, it would. I don't know if stylistically he would fit. Though the one guy I would get, I forgot, is Keith Moon.
The Keith Moon, yeah.
And Mooney would be the best. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what's next? Are you gonna stick to the fusion, or do you want to branch out into different avenues, or what? What do you think?
I've done over the pandemic. I got involved with lo-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Really a jazz kind of lo-fi-ish.
Mm-hmm.
The early days of acid jazz in the 90s. So I do have a release coming out with this kid called Homson. He's very popular amongst his peers on lo-fi. And he's actually, we tracked together called Jazztropolis. And that's going to come out probably in the next couple months. And it's kind of just, me, I'm doing some jazz chords and some clean tones and octaves and things. And he puts, some of this heavy groove, kind of like lo-fi stuff on it. So,
Nice.
So that'll be coming out, and experimented in that dabbled in that kind of. I use it under the name Asphalt Jungle.
Right.
So that'll be coming out soon.
Is that your alto ego, I guess?
Oh yeah, for doing the lo-fi stuff.
Yeah, cool. Do you know Jeff Berlin, bassist?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I could see him fitting in one of your albums as well.
Yeah. I was also Stu Ham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really good.
Excellent. Well, Brian, thank you, man, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. It's been fun going down memory lane here. If you're ever in this part of the state, let me know. Go out and have a beer or coffee, whatever.
Up to, that'd be great.
Yeah. I'm in Bradenton. We got a lot of musicians around this area. Brian Johnson lives close to me, and Rick Derringer had a house here.
Oh, cool.
I think Rick Derringer kind of has a house too towards your way somewhere.
Yeah, Rick wanted to get together with Rick. Rick is a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did so much great stuff.
Mm-hmm. We got Rick Wills lives around here, and the original keyboard player from Yes. I forgot his name now.
Oh, Rick Wakeman?
No, before Wakeman. I forgot now. It's the age thing.
Yeah, you're talking about. I can see.
Yeah, yeah. But I appreciate it. I want to say very special thanks to my buddy Ann Layton for arranging this interview today. I've known Ann now for quite a long time. Nice lady. You can purchase the new album, Beyond the Warrior's Eyes, by Brian Tarquin and Heavy Friends. I like that Heavy Friends thing.
Yeah,
that was ingenious. Featuring Jean Luc Ponty, Eric Johnson, Robben Ford, Chris Poland, Steve Morse, Phil Nero, and many, many others. And what the best place to buy that is that at your Bandcamp site?
Yeah, you can go to Bandcamp. You could go to iTunes. You could purchase it and Spotify, and it's on all the DSPs. So what your favorite streaming app is.
It's an incredible album. I gave it 5 stars. That's one of the albums you can listen to over and over again, especially in a car if you had an 8-track.
I'm fooling around in my mind to say maybe I should do cassettes. That'd be cool. Remember that little cassette would fold out with all. That's the thing I miss is all the credits and
I know the liner notes and everything. Yeah. You know what was ingenious is when Pink Floyd. Do you remember when they did the Pulse album with the little light blinking on the CD? That was ingenious. My light lasted a couple of years.
That's great. They were so ingenious with all their stuff. They were really. Or,
I was so happy I had Durga McBroom on before you. Durga is one of the singers, background singers. Such a nice lady. She was pretty
right.
cool. You got your official website, www.briantarquin.com. You're on Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, Twitter, Spotify, and of course, talk about your radio show, which is on every Monday, right?
Yeah, WFIT.org. You can stream it, Guitar Tracks. Or if you're in the Brevard County area, you can, or Melbourne area, you can go to 89.5 FM.
And also the Beyond the Warrior's Eyes special donation page as well.
It shows midnight every Monday night.
It's every Monday night, yeah.
Interviewed Percy Jones this last week, and I just interviewed Al Dimiola, and you can catch the interviews too on the DSPs, like YouTube has it, and all the other ones, Guitar Tracks.
Okay. Do you ever want to trade artists from show to show? Let me know. I've got a big list too.
Yeah, I'd love to. Sure,
I know a lot of PR people, and
Yeah, that would be great. I'll take you up on that because I'm always looking for artists. Did you say Brian from AC/DC lives out there?
Yeah, he does. I've never interviewed Brian. He's got a house here. He does a lot of racing, but he's got a house in Sarasota. You want Brian? Brian on your show?
No, I've never had Brian on the show. But AC/DC is such a classic act. So
yeah. If you like, I'll send you a list of the people I've interviewed, and if you see anybody on the list you're interested in, I'll set you up.
Yeah, please do. You can send it to bhpmusic@gmail. That's
okay.
Bhp's and Paul Music at Gmail. So
is that email on one of your websites?
I'm not sure. Could be.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
So you can send it to there directly, and send me the link to the show. I'd love to share it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I'll send everything to Ann, I guess, and I guess she'll send it to you.
Yeah,
I'm on like 30 different streaming sites, so I'll send you all the links.
Oh, awesome! That's great.
I've also created a TV pilot, a comedy TV pilot based on my first book. It's all set to go. So if you know anybody in the biz, I'll make your music the theme song.
You should send me a synopsis of it.
I'll send it to you. Yeah. It's hard. You got to know somebody. But it's very funny. It's a funny show. It's based on on me growing up in the family business in DC.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And it's retail electronics, exactly what we've been talking about. So
awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Maybe I'll send you the links to my first book and second book. I'll send you the ebook versions of both. My second book's called The Rockstar Chronicles. It's got over 45 interviews with music legends, and a lot of them have passed on, like Keith Emerson and Ronnie Montrose. It's a really cool book. I think you'll like it.
Like that. That's great.
Yeah, man. Brian, thank you, dude.
Bro, great meeting you.
Me too, man. Had a lot of fun, and it's always great to see another Floridian.
Yeah. Take care, buddy.
All right, you too, man. My best to you and the family. Take care.
Bye-bye.